Since May, I've eaten almost nothing but ramen. Not the artistic kind you find in a Japanese restaurant, with a soft-boiled egg and slices of chashu pork. I'm talking about the cheapest kind on the supermarket shelf, 5 packs for $1, noodles as brittle as dry autumn leaves, with seasoning packets containing only salt and MSG. This is my fuel now. Half-empty bottles of soda I used to toss away are now nectar to me. Leftover pizza I once threw out is now a gourmet meal. My taste buds have forgotten the texture of steak and the aroma of fine wine, but I feel grateful for a tiny packet of pickled mustard greens. You might not believe me, but right now if someone could give me $40 to rent a room in that Starlight Inn on the outskirts of town, even if the sheets have cigarette burns and the air smells of mold, I'd feel incredibly lucky. Because that would mean I could lie down securely with the AC on, without worrying about being harassed by cops or homeless people, and finally get a full night's sleep. I'm 33 years old. I wasn't born this way. I once had a respectable job, a loving wife, a sweet son, and a house with a white picket fence in the suburbs. I was a snapshot of the American dream. Now, I'm its shattered wreckage. My story begins in 2021, but to truly understand how I went from a middle-class project manager to a phantom living on instant noodles, we have to go back further, to when everything was still full of hope. My name is AKS. Before that incident, my life could be described as stable. I worked as a project manager at a mid-sized tech company, earning a 6-figure salary. It wasn't top tier, but in our Midwest city, it was more than enough to live a very comfortable life. I drove a Honda Accord, not a fancy car, but reliable, fuel-efficient, and the payments were always on time. I met Alice in college. She worked in the library back then, and the sunlight streaming through the tall windows illuminated her as she meticulously organized books. That image is still clear in my mind. She was kind, intelligent, and her eyes would crinkle into crescent moons when she smiled. We dated, fell in love, and after graduation, naturally got married. Our wedding was simple, with only our closest family and friends. I remember promising her in my vows that I would give her a stable, happy home. I was sincere back then. After we got married, we worked hard and saved diligently. Our goal was clear: save enough for a down payment to buy our own house in the suburbs. Every weekend, we'd go to open houses, jotting down pros and cons in a notebook, fantasizing about our future life. Alice would say, "This kitchen is so big, I can make you your favorite lasagna here someday." I'd say, "Look at this backyard, big enough for us to get a golden retriever and build a swing for our future kids." 2 years later, we achieved that dream. It was a 2-story house with a neatly manicured lawn and the backyard we'd always dreamed of. We excitedly moved in, painting the walls ourselves and assembling IKEA furniture. We invited friends over for a housewarming party, grilling burgers and hot dogs, and Alice's laughter echoed like silver bells throughout the yard. I looked at everything before me, filled with a sense of accomplishment. I did it. I gave her a home. In early 2021, Alice gave birth to our son, Leo. I was ecstatic. Holding him in my arms for the first time, I felt like I had the whole world. He was so small, so soft, and I swore I'd be the best father in the world. But vows are cheap. The halo of idealized fatherhood quickly wore away under the grind of reality. Leo was a fussy baby, especially at night. His cries were sharp and persistent, capable of piercing any earplugs. I was already a light sleeper, and this made me incredibly irritable. I loved my son, there's no doubt about that, but I started to resent taking care of my son. I missed the carefree days with my friends, the nights I could sleep until morning. Alice took on most of the childcare, but exhaustion is contagious. Our conversations grew fewer, our arguments more frequent. To escape that prison filled with baby cries and diaper smells, I started making excuses. "Honey, the company has a big project recently. I need to go out and discuss it with the team. An old friend from out of town is visiting. I have to entertain him. The economy's bad. I need to go out and talk to friends to see if there are any side hustles to make money." These lies snowballed. Alice was initially oblivious. She'd just worriedly tell me, "Don't work too hard, take care of yourself." And I, with a hint of guilt and immense relief, escaped the home I had built with my own hands. My so-called business talks were actually just gathering with friends, drinking, and playing cards until dawn. At the card table, I could temporarily forget that I was a tired father, an inadequate husband. The thrill of controlling the game made me feel like the omnipotent AKS again. However, I didn't know that what would truly push me into the abyss wasn't poker, but an invisible, more vicious beast. It was lurking in a small cell phone, waiting for people like me to fall into its trap. That night that changed my life was no different from any other guy's night out. We were short one player, so my friend Jack made a call and brought in a guy I didn't know named Marco to fill in. Marco wasn't my type. He wore trendy brands, gold chains, and always spoke with a slick confidence. He didn't care about winning or losing a few dozen dollars at the card table like we did. Between hands, he kept playing on his phone, his face sometimes excited, sometimes annoyed. I curiously asked him what he was doing. He turned his phone screen to me. It was the interface of a sports betting app. "Playing this is way more exciting than cards," he said with a smile. "A single game can decide hundreds or thousands of dollars in minutes. This is real brain-based money-making." I knew nothing about sports betting at the time and just politely humored him. But the phrase brain-based money-making fell like a seed into my heart. I considered myself smarter than most people, with clear logic and a knack for analysis. Wasn't this precisely my advantage? That night, Marco won a lot of money from us, but he didn't seem to care. He even generously treated us to a late-night meal before he left. During the meal, he eloquently talked about how he predicted game outcomes by analyzing team data and player performance, making it sound like he wasn't gambling, but making a precise financial investment. Back home, Leo's cries pulled me back to reality again. Alice looked at me tiredly and asked how my business talk went. I vaguely brushed her off, but my mind kept replaying that app on Marco's phone. The next day, as if possessed, I downloaded the app. It gave me a $50 risk-free first bet. I thought, it's free money anyway, no big deal if I lose. I randomly picked an NBA game and bet on the home team to win. That night, I didn't watch the game and almost forgot about it. When I woke up the next morning, I opened the app and found an extra $40 in my account. That thrill of unearned money instantly hit me. A mere $40, yet it excited me more than the salary I earned from a week of hard work. I started dedicating more time to research, reading sports news and analyzing odds. I told myself this wasn't gambling. It was scientific prediction based on data. At first, I had wins and losses, but overall I was winning. I transferred a few $100s of my winnings to Alice, proudly telling her it was from my investment. Alice was happy. She praised my intelligence, saying I always found ways to make money. Her praise fueled my vanity and greed. I started increasing my bets, from tens of dollars per game to hundreds. I have a fatal flaw in my personality. I can accept victory, but I cannot bear defeat. When I won money, I felt like a genius. When I lost, that sense of frustration and unwillingness to accept it would drive me crazy. I couldn't accept the failure of my analysis. I always felt it was bad luck, and I would definitely win it back next time. So, chasing losses became the norm. To recover a few $100s of loss, I'd bet thousands. The turning point happened one NFL weekend. I lost several games in a row, leaving me with almost no money in my account. In a fit of desperation, I put all the remaining $2,000 from my monthly paycheck into a vastly mismatched game, betting on an upset. Throughout the game, my heart felt like it would pound out of my chest. In the final moments, the trailing team miraculously scored a touchdown, and I won. In one go, I won back nearly $8,000. In that moment, I felt like I was on top of the world. I not only recovered all my losses, but also netted $6,000. I rushed into the bedroom, shook Alice awake from her sleep, and showed her my phone account. I boasted that I earned it with my wisdom and courage. Although Alice was a little worried, seeing the money, she could only believe in my ability. That night, Pandora's box was fully opened. I was no longer satisfied with winning or losing tens or hundreds of dollars. I started to believe this was my shortcut to financial freedom. I became completely addicted. Our family's money had always been in a joint account, managed by Alice, who was better at financial planning. My salary was automatically deposited each month, and household expenses were paid from it. We had about $15,000 in emergency savings. This money became my next target. I started secretly transferring money. The first time, I transferred $500, my heart pounding. I immediately deleted the notification email from the bank. Alice didn't notice. My boldness grew. $1,000, then $2,000. I was like a thief stealing in my own home. After each transfer, I was under immense psychological pressure, but the thrill of the gambling table quickly drowned out that guilt. Until one day, chasing a big loss, I lost all $15,000 of our savings in a single day. I stared at the insufficient balance notification on my phone, my mind blank. I had lost everything we had saved for our future. But I didn't confess. I chose to cover the hole with a bigger lie. After losing all our savings, I briefly panicked. I couldn't gamble anymore because I had no money. But the addiction gnawed at me like a worm. Just then Jack, the friend who introduced me to card games, inadvertently showed me another way out. During a conversation, Jack complained that the pandemic had impacted his income, making life difficult. I casually asked him how he was coping. He said, "Hey, online loans are so convenient now. Just fill out some info, and a few $1,000s are in your hand. The interest is high, but for an emergency, it's better than begging friends for money and losing face." Those words were nothing short of a revelation to me. I immediately searched online, and countless ads for online lending platforms flooded my screen. Instant approval, no collateral, up to $50,000 limit. They looked so friendly, so tempting. I applied for $3,000 on one platform, just to try it out. In less than half an hour, the money was in my account. That feeling was like finding money out of nowhere. I felt no sense of debt, only that my ammunition was plentiful again. I immediately deposited the $3,000 into my betting account. If Jack hadn't told me about online loans, I might have stopped gambling because I ran out of money. But now, the gates of hell opened wider for me. Over the next year or so, I completely lost control. I robbed Peter to pay Paul, using new loans to pay off old ones, and all the remaining money went to gambling. My loan accounts grew from 1 to 2, then from 7 to 8. From relatively legitimate personal loan companies to payday loans with interest rates as high as 300%, my phone was filled with various loan apps. I was like a skilled financial acrobat, juggling between various repayment dates. I precisely calculated each platform's interest-free period and minimum repayment amount, creating a facade that I was still living a normal life. Alice was completely unaware because I submitted money to our household account on time every month, paying the mortgage and various bills. She just thought I was working exceptionally hard lately, always earning extra money. She didn't know that every penny of the money I used to pay bills carried bloody interest. This snowball eventually rolled to $45,000. The interest choked me. I could no longer maintain this Ponzi scheme by borrowing new money to pay old debts. Collection calls and emails started bombarding my phone. I knew I couldn't hold on any longer. I chose one night to confess to Alice. I still remember the expression on her face, from confusion to shock to unbelievable anger and disappointment. She couldn't understand how the loving, family-oriented husband she adored had become a debt-ridden gambler. 45,000? AKS, tell me this is just a joke, she cried, her voice trembling. I knelt on the floor, weeping, swearing I would change, begging her for another chance. That night, neither of us slept. We talked about divorce, about selling the house. Finally, Alice, her tears dried, decided that for the sake of our child, for the sake of our home, we would face it together. The next day, we drove to my parents' house. That was the most humiliating day of my life. My father, an honest man who had been a mechanic his whole life, hated speculation and gambling the most. When I laid everything out, he trembled with rage, grabbing the newspaper from the table and throwing it at me. I don't have a son like you. You shameless bastard, he roared, his eyes bloodshot. My mother cried incessantly nearby, begging my father to help me. He's our only son. If we don't help him, his life will be ruined. Those few days, the atmosphere in our home was extremely tense. My father wouldn't speak a word to me, and my mother cried all day long. Finally, after my mother's constant pleas and considering family harmony, my father compromised. He took out their lifelong savings, the money they had saved for their retirement, and helped me pay off all my loans. The day the debts were paid off, I felt reborn. I hugged my parents and Alice, swearing over and over again that I would never gamble again. I deleted all the betting and loan apps from my phone. I thought this would be a brand new start. However, I overestimated my willpower and underestimated the insidious nature of gambling addiction. The very day the loans were paid off, a terrible thought arose in my mind. Those loan apps' credit limits were back. How great would it be if I could be a little more careful, win back the money I lost, and return my parents' retirement savings to them? Once that thought appeared, it wouldn't go away. I told myself I wasn't gambling for myself. I was gambling to make up for my mistakes. I'm a sore loser. Unless I win back all my losses, the knot in my heart will never be untied. So, on the very same day I was supposedly redeemed, I secretly re-downloaded those apps and stepped back into hell. Returning to the gambling table, I became even more paranoid and desperate. I had a burning desire to prove to everyone that I could win back everything I had lost. The house always wins. I knew that better than anyone, but in a gambler's dictionary, there's always the word what if. I started gambling with increasing intensity. Winning a few $1,000s one day, I'd feel invincible again, that illusion of control returning. But before the money even warmed in my account, perhaps due to some inexplicable game or impulsive bet, it would vanish in the blink of an eye. Over the next 6 months, I was like a cursed Sisyphus, repeating the cycle of borrowing, gambling, and losing everything. Not only did I reborrow and lose all the $45,000 loan limit I had just paid off, but I also reached for the last straw, relatives and friends. I fabricated all sorts of lies. The company was having cash flow problems. Alice was seriously ill. The child needed an expensive surgery. I exploited their trust and sympathy, borrowing another $30,000 from them. My total debt, in less than a year after being paid off, surged to $75,000. My parents could no longer help. When I confessed to them again, my father didn't hit or scold me. He just looked at me in silence, his eyes filled with despair. That night, he was rushed to the emergency room with a sudden angina attack. The doctor said it was due to extreme emotional distress. Watching my father lying in the hospital bed, I felt a bone-deep fear for the first time. I realized I was actively destroying this family with my own hands. That time, the last shred of my rationality led me to a decision. I told Alice, "Let's sell the house and get a divorce. That way, at least you and Leo won't be dragged down." Alice cried. She was a traditional woman who cared deeply about others' opinions and felt that divorce was a very disgraceful thing. But looking at my father in the hospital bed and the piles of collection notices, she knew we had nowhere else to go. She agreed to sell the house, but she gave me one last chance. She chose not to divorce but to move out and rent a place with me, hoping this huge change would completely awaken me. The house sold quickly. After paying off all our debts, we had about $50,000 left. For an ordinary family, this was enough capital to start over. If I had stopped then, we might have had a simple but stable future. But a gambler's mind is twisted. In my eyes, this $50,000 wasn't capital to start a new life. It was my last chip to turn things around. That stubborn refusal to lose once again took over. So I orchestrated the biggest deception of my life. I told Alice I was going to use the money to start a business, an e-commerce company. I painted a beautiful picture for her, saying it was our only chance to escape our predicament. Alice was moved by my ambition and handed all the money over to me. I rented a cheap, small office, bought a used computer, and printed fake business plans and business cards. Every day, I pretended to go out to run errands and meet clients. In reality, I just locked myself in that small office, gambling day and night. $50,000 in the crazy world of gambling was just a drop in the ocean. I kept increasing my bets, hoping to win back a house, win back my lost dignity. The result, as you can imagine, was that all the money was gone in no time. The day I lost all the money, I sat in the empty office, watching the traffic outside, feeling disconnected from the entire world. I truly regretted it. How I wished I had stopped then. I could have easily lied to Alice and said the business failed, all the money was lost, and at least our marriage could have been saved. But I didn't. I was possessed. Money was no longer money in my eyes, just a tool for me to turn things around. After losing everything, my first reaction wasn't remorse, but how to get more money. I started fabricating even more absurd lies. I told Alice my company had landed a big order and made a huge profit, but due to some compliance issues, the funds were temporarily frozen by the bank. I told her that if we just paid a $45,000 deposit, that huge sum would be unfrozen, and all our troubles would be solved. To make the lie seem more real, I even found a few friends I knew from the gambling tables and had them pretend to be my big clients and suppliers calling Alice. I designed their scripts, having them use professional tones to describe the bright prospects of our business to Alice. Alice, my poor, innocent wife, believed me again. She looked at my forged bank freeze notice, at the emails from my business partners, and she fully believed it. She started applying for those online loans she once deeply loathed, under her own name. She used all her credit cards, and even sought help from her parents and brother. As she transferred me the bits and pieces of money she had scraped together, my heart was filled with a guilty euphoria. I almost laughed out loud. I didn't even think about how these debts would destroy her credit and her life. I had only one thought in my mind. This time, I'm definitely going to win it all back. The result was that every time she transferred me money, I lost it. The $45,000 she borrowed vanished like a stone thrown into the sea, without even a ripple. What I'll never forget is the night I lost all the money Alice borrowed. At that point, I only had a few $100s left in my account. I told myself this was my last shot. I started making some extremely high-risk bets, and miraculously, I started winning consistently. My account balance went from hundreds to 1,000, to 5,000, to 10,000. Adrenaline surged wildly through my body. I felt like a god. From 10 p.m. until 5 a.m., I barely moved from the computer screen. My eyes were bloodshot, but my mind was unusually alert. Finally, my account balance settled at just over $14,800. I thought at the time, let's round it up, withdraw it when it hits $15,000. Although this money wasn't enough to pay off all the debts, it could at least temporarily alleviate Alice's pressure. So, I put a few $100s on an ongoing tennis match. I lost. Unwilling to give up, I put another $1,000 in. I lost again. The chasing losses emotion instantly consumed me. I lost all reason with only one thought in my mind: win back what I just lost. I started betting recklessly, the stakes growing higher and higher. 1 hour. Just 1 hour. I watched as the numbers in my account went from nearly $15,000 to 1,000 to 100 and finally to 0. The world went quiet. I sat in the chair, motionless, until the sky outside the window began to lighten. That feeling of falling from heaven to hell completely broke me. I walked onto the balcony. Our rented apartment was on the 12th floor. I watched the traffic below shrink to the size of ants, and a thought flashed through my mind. Jump, and it would all be over. I put one leg over the railing. But at that moment, a gust of wind blew, and I felt dizzy. I have a fear of heights. That bone-deep fear was stronger than my feelings of despair. My legs began to tremble uncontrollably. I didn't have the courage to end my life. I didn't even have the courage to die. I clumsily climbed back from the railing, collapsed on the floor, and sobbed like a child. After that, everything was irreversible. The total debt, including what was in my name and what Alice borrowed from me, had ballooned to over $180,000 with interest. Collection calls flooded both our phones, and threatening letters crammed our mailbox. Alice finally saw my true colors. She no longer cried, nor did she scold me. She simply placed a divorce agreement in front of me. "AKS, I've had enough," she said. "For Leo's sake, I have to leave you." I had nothing to say and silently signed. I left with nothing. Not only did I lose a home, but I also left the woman I once loved most with an insurmountable debt and a completely ruined credit score. After the divorce, I never thought about paying back the money she owed. My logic was, we're divorced. Her debt has nothing to do with me. I thought, I hope she finds someone well off and good to marry who can help her pay off her debts. I later learned that to pay off her debts, Alice had to send Leo back to her parents' house, while she herself worked multiple jobs day and night. Her parents, who had already given their savings to her brother to buy a house, now had to help raise her child, making their lives incredibly difficult. And I became a true lost soul. The first week after the divorce, I slept in my Honda. Soon, because I couldn't make the payments, the car was repossessed by the bank. I truly had nothing left. I started spending nights in 24-hour fast food restaurants, bus stations, and on park benches. I learned how to wash up in public restrooms and how to avoid patrolling police. I became an invisible man in the city, a parasite on society. My cash quickly ran out. The feeling of hunger was the most real. I started rummaging through trash cans looking for leftover food. That feeling of humiliation was far more painful than losing money. I was once a respectable project manager. Now I was fighting with homeless people over a half-eaten burger. To survive, I started doing odd jobs. Hauling bricks on construction sites, washing dishes in restaurant kitchens. These jobs were dirty and exhausting, earning me only a few dozen dollars a day. That money was only enough for a few packs of instant noodles and a bottle of the cheapest alcohol to numb myself. Ironically, even in this state, the thought of gambling still didn't leave me. Whenever I had a few tens of dollars in hand, I faced a choice: buy food, buy a lottery ticket, or log into a still-working betting account on my phone and make a bet. That distorted logic deep inside me would start to resurface. What can a few tens of dollars do? Buy a few meals, and then what? Tomorrow will be the same. But what if I bet it all and won? What if I could turn these few tens of dollars into thousands? So, I often threw the hard-earned money for food back into that bottomless pit. The result, of course, was losing everything. Then I'd go hungry again, and go back to rummaging through trash cans. It's an endless, self-destructive cycle. It's not that I don't want to pay back my ex-wife. Occasionally, Alice sends me messages, not curses, but almost pleading texts, asking if I could transfer her even $100 so she could buy something for Leo. Every time I see such a message, my heart aches. But what's my reaction? It's avoidance. I can't face it, because $100 earned from odd jobs is meaningless compared to that huge debt of over $100,000. Giving her that $100 would be a humiliation for me, as it starkly reminds me of how far I've fallen. So I'd rather take that $100 and gamble it, chasing that elusive comeback dream. I'd rather lose it all than give it to the person I've wronged the most. How selfish, how despicable this thought is. But that's what I thought at the time. The only thing remotely valuable about me, perhaps, is the occasional surge of honesty that washes over me. On some drunken late night, I'll open my phone's notepad and record these experiences and thoughts. I don't know why, maybe I want to leave a footnote for this absurd life of mine. At least I still have the courage to face my own ugliness. But besides that, I'm useless. Several years have passed in a flash. I'm 33 years old. I've wasted the most precious years of my life, going from a middle-class man with a house and a car to a homeless person with nothing. My parents' health has been ruined by my actions, and they need medication year-round. They no longer want to see me. My son probably doesn't remember what I look like anymore. Perhaps having experienced too much despair, something clicked inside me. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be so childish, so pathetic, worrying about my next meal every day. I don't know if you'll ever see this story. Maybe you just won a lot of money and are feeling good. Maybe you're struggling with the pain of losing and thinking you'll win it back next time. No matter what stage you're at, I want to tell you, run. Don't believe in your skills, don't believe in your luck, and certainly don't believe in those lies about turning it all around next time. Gambling is a meticulously designed trap. Its only purpose is to drain every last cent from you, along with all your dignity, family ties, and love. You think you're gambling against the house? No, you're gambling against your own human weaknesses. You're fighting greed, fear, and wishful thinking. And in this war, you have no chance of winning. Look at me. I was once like you, confident, optimistic, believing I could control everything. I once had more than you probably have now. And the hell I'm in now is what your future will look like. That money you're betting away so casually now might one day become a luxury you beg for, a full meal you can't get. The family you're neglecting and deceiving now might one day be the only people you miss when everyone else has abandoned you, and you can never see them again. The intellect and courage you're so proud of now will only turn you into a complete fool, abandoned by society. Only when you lose everything do you truly appreciate what you have. Sleeping countless nights on cold streets makes you realize how blessed it is to have a bed. Gnawing on dry bread countless times makes you realize even a bowl of hot instant noodles is delicious. The fundamental reason I became this way is my insatiable greed. I not only harmed myself, but like a plague, I infected everyone who loved me. If you are still gambling, please stop now. Delete those apps, block those friends, and confess to your family. The process will be painful, full of humiliation, but trust me, it's 10,000 times better than reaching my point. It's hard to turn back, but forward is a bottomless abyss. I don't know what my future holds. Maybe I'll struggle at the bottom forever. Maybe one day I'll die on the street. But I've decided to write my story as a last will, or rather, a warning. Don't be like me. Before you lose everything, go home.